I'm going to read 3 poems from Frank Bidart, starting with Herbert White, which is in his first book, first poem. This is how he made his poetic debut. Herbert White. When I hit her on the head, it was good, and then I did it to her a couple of times. But it was funny afterwards. It was as if someone else did it. Everything flat, without sharpness, richness, or line. Still, I liked to drive past the woods where she lay. Tell the old lady and the kids I had to take a piss, hop out, and do it to her. The whole buggy of them waiting for me made me feel good. But still, just like I knew all along, she didn't move. When the body got too decomposed, I just jack off, letting it fall on her. It sounds crazy, but I tell you, sometimes it was beautiful. I don't know how to say it, but for a minute everything was possible. And then, well, like I said, she didn't move. And I saw under me, a little girl was just lying there in the mud. And I knew I couldn't have done that. Someone else had to have done that, standing above her there, in those ordinary, shitty leaves. One time, I went to see Dad in a motel where he was staying with a woman, but she was gone. You could smell the wine in the air, and he started real embarrassing to cry. He was still a little drunk, and asked me to forgive him for all he hadn't done. But what the shit? Who would have wanted to stay with Mom? Those bastards, not even his own kids? I got in the truck and started to drive, and saw a little girl, who I picked up, hit on the head, and screwed, and screwed, and screwed, and screwed, then buried in the garden of the motel. You see, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to feel things make sense. I remember looking out the window of my room back home and being almost suffocated by the asphalt and grass and trees and glass, just there, doing nothing, not saying anything, filling me up, but also being a wall, dead, and stopping me, and how I wanted to see beneath it, cut beneath it, and make it somehow come alive. The salt of the earth, Mom once said, man's spunk is the salt of the earth. That night, at the 29 Palms Motel, I'd passed a million times on the road. Everything fit together, was all right. It seemed like everything had to be there, like I'd spent years trying, and at last finally finished drawing this huge circle. But then suddenly I knew someone else did it. Some bastard had hurt a little girl. The motel I could see again. It had been itself all the time, a lousy pile of bricks, plaster, that didn't seem to have been there, but was, just by chance. Once, on the farm, when I was a kid, I was screwing a goat, and the rope around his neck, when he tried to get away, pulled tight, and just when I came, he died. I came back the next day, jacked off over his body, but it didn't do any good. Mom once said, man's spunk is the salt of the earth and grows kids. I tried so hard to come, more pain than anything else, but didn't do any good. About 6 months ago, I heard Dad remarried, so I drove over to Connecticut to see him and see if he was happy. She was 25 years younger than him. She had lots of little kids, and I don't know why I felt shaky. I stopped in front of the address and snuck up to the window to look in. There he was, a kid, 6 months old, on his lap, laughing and bouncing. The kid, happy in his old age to play the papa after years of sleeping around. It twisted me up to think that what he wouldn't give me, he wanted to give them. I could have killed the bastard. Naturally, I just got right back in the car and, believe me, was determined to head straight for home. But the more I drove, I kept thinking about getting a girl. And the more I thought I shouldn't do it, the more I had to. I saw her coming out of the movies, saw she was alone, and kept circling the blocks as she walked along them, saying, You're gonna leave her alone. You're going to leave her alone. The woods were scary. As the season changed and you saw more and more of the skull show through, the nights became clearer and the buds erect like nipples. And then one night, nothing worked. Nothing in the sky would blur like I wanted it to, and I couldn't get it to seem to me that somebody else did it. I tried and tried, but there was just me there, and her, and the sharp trees saying, "That's you standing there. You're just you." I hope I fry. Hell came when I saw myself and couldn't stand what I see. That one's tough. The next poem is going to be Valentine from Watching the Spring Festival. No, just kidding, I'm lying. I'm not starting over because Herbert White's tough to read through. We're going to do By These Waters. By These Waters is from the Western Night. I chose it because it's a little bit shorter. The punctuation is less expressive than you'll see in Herbert White in 1990, so it's about 20-something years after Herbert. By These Waters. What begins in recognition ends in obedience. The boys who lie back or stand up, allowing their flies to be unzipped, however much they charge, give more than they get. When the room went dark, the screen lit up. By these waters, on my knees, I have wept. And the final poem I'm going to recite is, this one is called Valentine. And Valentine is from Watching the Spring Festival, published in 2008. And the punctuation on this poem doesn't even exist. I mean, his style is definitely shifted from expressive field comp lineation into these beautiful like couplets. They're clean, the lines, it's short. But in this book, there's much longer poems. That's something that continues, but we'll talk about that later. Anyways, Valentine. How the dead use the word love bewildered and disgusted the boy, who resolved he would not reassure the world he felt love until he understood love. Resolve that too soon crumpled when he found something intolerable within his chest, for which the word, because no other word was right, must be love. Must be love. Love craved and despised and necessary. The great American songbook said explain our fate. My bereft grandmother, bereft father, bereft mother, their wild regrets. How the dead use love to explain wild regrets.